into this episode of Inside the World of Box Lacrosse, ITWOBL as we call it. I'm Adam Levy. I'm here with Steven Stamp, and Greg Beecher is behind the scenes running the show. Really glad to have you all here. It is a busy show, so let's get right to it. There were 8 games last weekend. We had 4 teams playing 2 games, and a very exciting start to the weekend with that Toronto Buffalo game that really came down to the wire once again. What can you expect when it's those 2 clubs? But Stamper, before we get into these highlights of one of the most exciting games of the week, take me through some of your highlights from the week that was.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I don't know. I kind of like jumping right into what you were talking about, Adam, because I think. But either way, let's go with mine. Sorry, Greg, we're bouncing back and forth. I picked out a few plays from this Saskatchewan-Calgary game, the Battle of the Prairies, and it's going to be a little teaser for us getting on to the San Diego Buffalo that was obviously huge for the weekend. And I love this goal by Austin Shanks because it's a great rip, right? You see, that's a great shot. Beats Cam McLeod, who's been playing well for Calgary. But look at this angle, and I think the next one as well show just the way how deceptive Austin Shanks is with this shot. I've watched this goal a whole bunch of times. Every single time, I think he's going near side, bottom corner. He goes far side, top corner. I don't know. Sorry, it's go Abrams that he beats because actually McLeod did have his struggles in the game. Abrams came in, and look at this. This is the one. Look at the hands. Does that not look like Austin Shanks is ripping that low bottom corner?
Yeah, 100%.
Right? And he just has this little movement. It's hard to even explain. Watch his right hand. The way it gets that twister action and just so subtle. It's brilliant. It's so simple. This is the kind of thing that makes Cody Jamieson so deadly from the top when he's just across the on his opposite side. And this is great work. Look at that. That is a beautiful, beautiful shot. And such a subtle little thing. And that's the difference between being a really good lacrosse player and being a great elite scorer in the National Lacrosse League.
Also emphasizing again, and I know that we've given praise to GM Coach Keenan, but the fact that he could sense what Austin Shanks could do within that system and how he's been paying off has been fantastic for them.
Yeah, no big surprise for Keenan, obviously, who coached him in junior. Shanks was a huge scorer with the Whitby Warriors, and he's had some great success in Halifax, but he's really been blossoming here again with the Rush. Of course, he was a top 5 pick overall. I mean, again, not a surprise, but now, speaking of great scorers, elite scorers, how about Curtis Dixon? And look at this play. And he's got Jake Boudreau, a very good defender, on him. And when you watch this over and over, you'll see what Dixon does here. Obviously, he has the elite speed, the quickness underneath. But watch the way he gets Boudreau. Boudreau's checking him. Boudreau gets up on the high hip. Dixon gets him on his back hip, on his left hip, which means Boudreau is high. It's going to be tough for him to defend Dixon if Dixon goes underneath. But watch when Dixon goes. Boudreau takes a look to see where his help is. It's not over there, Jake. And Curtis Dixon is gone with that quick drop step. That is such a Curtis Dixon goal. And I just love the way that he does it. This is the look right here where you see Boudreau take that peek. He's got to look. Now, if you're Boudreau, the error here, he's got to stay on the low hip. You've got to take away that underneath. And if Dixon's going to cut over top, that's where your help's going to be. That's where you can afford to let him go. He might still go and score on you, but at least you're not giving up as high quality a chance as Dixon has here. And Dixon loves it, of course.
I feel like it needs one of those Chris Boomer Berman whoops that he does on those NFL highlight clips.
Absolutely. Like he's just gone. It's gorgeous.
It's amazing that veteran presence of Curtis Dixon, who has been playing lights out. I mean, what he's doing now in Dane Dobie. I mean, sometimes you got to apologize to a guy when you've doubted them, and boy, they are proving a lot of people wrong because they are really on pace. I think Curtis Dixon on pace now for like 50, 52 goals. Dobie on pace, I think, for 55. So unreal.
Yeah. Do you think either of them gets to those numbers?
You know, I mean,
at this point,
I wouldn't have thought that they would have had 26 goals, 29 goals in 9-10 games. So I think anything's possible there. And they look dialed in. They look ready to compete, and they are leading that offense. But I know that the Jesse King effect, as many call it, is real, and he is having an equally great season. Always one of the top facilitators in this league, and he is opening up so much space for guys to finish, and also just the natural creativity and grittiness of those two.
The thing too, I mean, Curtis Dixon, he's going to just keep scoring. He scores, he goes, a couple goals here, a couple goals there. Dane Toby will have a drought at some point. I guarantee it, between now and the end of the season, where he'll go a few games, he'll only score a couple of goals here or there, like not score a lot. But as we've seen, he can go off for 8 or 6, or like he's had 2 sock tricks this year, right? Which isn't that the first or the second time in his career? Yeah, that was the Levi Nugget, wasn't it? That it's his second
only the
season
second
with 2
time
tricks.
Yep.
I wouldn't put it past him to have a third. That guy can score anytime. He's incredible.
And now also that you've said that publicly, I mean, now maybe he won't have a slow game, and he'll just out of vengeance is going to come out there and start scoring a ton of goals. Let's.
He does have that gene. He has the. Oh, you doubt me, gene?
Yeah, exactly.
He could do it. Yeah, let's move on to Jake Boudreau's revenge. I love this goal because it's such a good example. Boudreau on the run, takes off and gets a nice little pick here from Bobby Kidd III. And watch when Jake Boudreau shoots. And this is something I think a lot of people don't notice if they're fairly new fans or even fairly existing fans. You tend to shoot off your lead foot. If you're a righty, you'll shoot off your left foot. A lefty, you shoot off your right foot because you get to load up and really get your power. Watch the way that Boudreau shoots off his right foot, because goalies know that. They know that you're probably going to usually shoot off your main foot. So they're going to step out of it. Goa Abrams is settling himself as Boudreau is on his left foot. He's stepping, and Boudreau shoots off the off foot. This is a great look at it from here. And boom, he gets Abrams before he's really ready. Because as a goalie, it's hardwired that he's probably taking one more step, especially with the pick just kind of forming. And if he takes that other step, he's more into the space that's protected by Kidd's pick. That's just a beautiful play by Jake Boudreau, and not easy to do on your off foot. Like it just looks so smooth and natural for him, but no, that's quite a play by Boudreau.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And he is one of the leading transition players in the NLL right now. And his game, I don't have the stats right in front of me, but I know his numbers. Him and Messenger, I had actually tweeted it out, combined for over the weekend in their 2 games, 41 loose ball recoveries and 10 caused turnovers. Wow. It was really unbelievable to see what they could do. I believe it was the Rochester game where both of them had four caused turnovers each. So,
and we're going to talk about some of the top players in the next section, which will be our awards section. So, but before we get to that, Adam, this one, there were some thrilling highlights, and
unbelievable
in this game. Go watch the Berg goal in overtime. It's gorgeous. Go watch the Courier tying goal. But what about this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is amazing. I mean, look, so San Diego gets an opportunity, great 2-man game there. It's saved by Matt Vince, but then the hustle play here on the ground, which, that was San Diego's ploy all weekend, is that Buffalo was coming off the game on Friday night against Toronto. And it's the hustle play that gets Berg the opportunity by the crease. Really amazing. And of course, it's got to be Zach Courier, right? I mean, this guy, what doesn't he do? He really, I actually, again, had tweeted out, he has now got 20 plus points, 20 plus caused turnovers, and 100 plus loose balls. There's only 4 players that have ever done that in NLL history, and he's done that in 10 games. So he's unreal.
Yeah, and he had another one later, right late in the game, actually. The goal that was called back, he went in and basically caused that ball to be loose and gave them the chance to get that goal that was eventually called back. And then he scored the big goal. The thing to me, Zach Courier, he's been playing a lot of offense this year because they've needed him to. And now with Ryan Benesh out this week, he goes back up to the front after he'd gone back to defense. He's just jumping in wherever they need him. But he plays offense like he plays defense. He's just all over it, right? Like that is a great example of how hard he worked. I mean, the forecheck, it's not even like a forecheck. It's like he's in the defensive zone checking. And, they get that ball back. But then he's also got some pretty darn good skills in the offensive zone.
Yeah, and I know, talking to Coach Merrill of the San Diego Seals, that, one of the things that they've been moving around so many different pieces. Trey LeClaire had missed a handful of games earlier in the year, and now he's back, which is great, and that has shifted some things. But, Courier really, I think, needs to be in that conversation, especially let's see where San Diego falls out, not only for transition player of the year, but if he keeps going at this pace and San Diego keeps winning, again, having him in that MVP conversation. But I know I'm leading into our next section, but yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And then we can see here in overtime, and this was a thrilling overtime game. Chris Origlieri, at his age, 22 years old, to be making these saves in these clutch moments in Bandit Land. We gave so much credit to Andrew Kidd when Albany was in there, when he had that stretch against Buffalo the other week, with the fans jeering him and attacking him, and Chris Origlieri the same. And look at the contact he takes there. I was, almost surprised, that there wasn't. I mean, you could see why the players got a little feisty there. Nice of him to just walk away, Origlieri, and not get in the scuffle. But it really showed his growth and maturity and his ability to handle those big moments. So it was really impressive.
It really was. I mean, he's had his ups and downs, obviously, in the season after a great year last year. And we've talked about how, it's the natural next season is going to be really hard because everyone adjusts to you. And I said early in the year, my preseason, my preseason preview, I was like, I did 3 questions for each team, and one for San Diego was, is Origlieri an elite goalie? And I said, you can't say that yet because it's been one really good season and the league will adjust. How does he adjust? He is adjusting very well in that circumstance.
Yeah, and I would say that, people obviously say, oh, well, has he had, that many really big 60-minute games? And you could say, yeah, he hasn't played as many full 60-minute excellent games as we would maybe think he could be capable of at this point, although, again, still super young. But it's stretches like that. I mean, I think he hadn't allowed a goal in the last 7 minutes of regulation time as well. And then also, not allowing those goal in the 5 minutes in overtime. So that's 12 minutes against the Buffalo Bandits in Buffalo. That is no easy task for any goaltender.
Yeah. Hey, what else stood out for you? I know you were saying, Adam, you shouldn't have.
I'm going to jump in here
Greg.
for 1 second. So they actually held them scoreless for almost 2 quarters, because that first quarter, they didn't score until there was 8 seconds left, and then they didn't score from 10 minutes left into almost 5 minutes into overtime. So that's pretty much 2 quarters worth of time. That was something I picked up. And I was really surprised to see the shots on goal not as high either. So kudos to that San Diego defense. I did not get a chance to watch that game yet, though.
Oh my goodness! That should be the first thing you do after we're done with this show. It was
100%.
such a good game. But what stood out to me, and it was interesting to see how Rylan Hartley, had some trouble against Saskatchewan, especially Saskatchewan, on the second night of a back-to-back. But on the flip side, how good Saskatchewan was against Rochester. I know that they have defensive issues in Rochester and goaltending there. Hartley coming back from the injury, still trying to figure it out. But we've talked about this before with goaltending decisions. Do they go back to Hutchcraft for this next game? Or, if Hartley has a bit of a slow start or there's a slow period, does Hutchcraft get more playing time? I think he only played 5 minutes during that game where Hartley allowed the 17 goals. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. It's great to see Rylan Hartley back, but that did stand out to me. Also amazing to see the Ottawa Black Bears offense alive again, as you wrote about in your 5 things. That is great to see. The league needs more Jeff Teets sock tricks, so that is good. And I think that those are some of my takeaways in Halifax. They are here again, and they're feeling good about what they're doing.
It's interesting. You talk about the teams with the back-to-back weekends, and I've looked at that because teams used to do quite well in doubleheader weekends. They tended to win quite a bit more than they lost, especially second games. They do really well. This year, teams there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 6, probably more now, because I did a couple weeks ago. At least 6 times teams have had a doubleheader weekend and lost both ends. Toronto is the only team going into this past weekend that had won both ends. Of course, Saskatchewan did it this weekend. Nobody else did, right? Because Buffalo split, Vegas lost both. So it hasn't been that common for teams to do really well, but there are teams that have won I'm sorry. I'm looking at last season as well, where it really happened. There haven't been many back-to-back weekends. It was last year where teams were not winning the first half of back-to-backs a lot. Sometimes we're coming back to get the other ones. So it's playing out this year that it is not that big of an advantage. It really used to be an advantage to play the doubleheader weekends. The other thing that has changed is after a bye week, teams coming back. I know, again, did this a couple of weeks ago and just pulled it up. I haven't updated it for this week, but last year, teams were 25 and 26 in the week after a bye, which is pretty normal for historical purposes over the last, say, decade. Teams have tended to lose more often than not after a bye week. If they're playing, especially against a team that's not coming off a bye, teams like to keep playing. That's why. But this year, going into week 11, I think it was, the teams were 17 and 10 in the week after their bye. Teams are appreciating the time off this year. I don't know. I don't know why, but it obviously it's going to bear more study, more looking at the stats. But I just find that really interesting.
Yeah, and by the way, have you ever coined the Stamper Nugget? Is that a thing? Do you
I
have?
haven't. I've got the musings. So do I need the nuggets too? I think you can have the nuggets.
Well, the Stamper stat sounds better. It's got
That's not bad.
Yeah,
We'll
work on it.
We'll work on it. We'll come up with a good term. I like that. Thanks for the thought process. You were bummed that you didn't give up on that you didn't stick with your Saskatchewan ride for the week, and yeah, you probably should have.
I probably should have. Man, they are really good. I mean, I think they're the best transition team in the league right now. I mean, it's hard to argue that. Mike Messenger, Jake Boudreau, the way Bobby Kidd has been in transition as well, really unbelievable. And this is, it's so amazing when you see a team have a formula. We talked about Derek Keenan and what he likes to do and what brought the team success a decade ago, and building from the back and then making everyone fast and athletic. And he's done the same thing again, and it's paying off. And it's so cool to see when you put your mind to something, you've got a formula, and then it works out. And that's just been so cool to see Saskatchewan have that happen. And it's given their social media team a lot of reasons to post some very interesting content. They have been controversial at times, but it has been they've been having a lot of fun with the season that the Rush have been having.
Yeah, over the line, I think a couple times. It's some pretty interesting stuff. I definitely, there's a couple that I would be like, yeah, I don't know if I like that, but certainly the whole proposal thing, that's not my thing. But whatever. Do the Rush though have an MVP candidate out of all their success? We're going to talk about that and all of the key awards in the next segment of Inside the World of Box Lacrosse here with Blue Squatch Productions on YouTube. Welcome back, lacrosse friends, to Inside the World of Box Lacrosse here on ITWOBL. It is time for our midseason awards because we got through over half of the games in the year. I know it's week 12 of 21, but I always go by the midpoint in terms of number of games. 63 games is half the season. We passed that in week 12. Adam, you put out your picks a week ago. We'll see if anything has changed there. I don't know. Might have. And I am struggling to come up with some of these, and some of them I'm pretty sure on. We're going to start with the MVP, and why don't you go ahead, and then I'll waffle about after you're done.
Oh man, I mean, it's so tough. I mean, with this weekend that happened, I talked about a guy like Zach Currier, being in that conversation. I think, it's hard not to say Dane Smith, but then, after the loss, San Diego, and Zach Currier has that big game, and the fact that he's stepped up, I think the chalk pick would be Dane Smith right now, just with the way that he's playing, or Josh Byrne, but. I would say that Zach Currier would actually be my sleeper pick or my second pick, just by the way that he has embodied every single thing that you want as as a good player and a guy who can play defense, transition, score goals. He's scoring at a ridiculous rate, assisting at a ridiculous rate. He's doing everything. So, you know what? Maybe have I convinced myself in this moment? You know what? I'm just going to say it's the halfway mark. It doesn't really mean that much to say someone maybe a little bit more controversial. So I'll go Zach Currier.
And am I on? I don't know if my video is working here. I'm the one having some internet issues this week, I guess. And we usually have, like, our upload speed is usually like 500. We've got actually really good internet now out in the country here in Marmara. Am I okay now? Okay. Yeah, I think this is probably the hardest award to pick. And I agree. Dane Smith has to be. Oh, geez, I jinxed you, Adam. Yeah, Dane Smith has to be in the conversation. I think Mitch Jones and Joe Resetarits, but I kind of lean towards Jones a bit. Maybe, I don't know. For Philadelphia, I think I think Wes Berg, probably my guy from Career has been fantastic. I think Berg is just so everything they need. When they need something, it's always Wes Berg, it feels like, or Zach Curry, or the two of them together, as we saw in that one play. And I'm going to land on I think yeah, we can hear you. I don't know if everyone else can. But sorry, we're having a few issues here in the world of box lacrosse.
Issues are always a part of the game. So
yeah, oh my goodness. Okay, excellent. We're still talking. We could hear you in the background. Hopefully, just us, because you're getting a little spicy, but that's understandable. The other guy I want to throw into the conversation is Zach Higgins. Holy cow! With the scoring trouble they've had, to still be sitting in a playoff spot, and he's been spectacular. So I might be on Higgins right now, with the caveat that there's about 6 different guys that are right in the mix.
Yeah, and I would say that's fair, and especially with my what we were just saying about Zach Currier and where the Seals are at and those guys. I think that the go-to, again, the chalk, is to go with the team that's got the best record or someone from there. I would also just say, you'd mentioned kind of as a teaser to this segment about Saskatchewan, one of the things that, I think, and I would say for almost every guy in the National Lacrosse League, they would much rather have a championship and team success than personal success.
Yes.
And Saskatchewan is playing complete team ball right now. And so you're seeing that, yes, big games from Bob Church, Robert Church. I don't know, does he prefer Rob or Bob? Robert, that's what I thought. And then, you've got other, huge players. Ryan Keenan's been stepping up big, Mike Messenger. But it has been team ball. And I would say that that's why for Saskatchewan it wouldn't make sense to include one person, because then you could make the case for everybody.
I think you've made a great case for it, given that if I was picking my top 3 MVP candidates for Saskatchewan for the team MVP, I'd probably go with Zach Mans, Matt Hossack, and Frank Chiliano. And 3 completely different guys. I think it's huge that they have, and I agree with all yours, a half a dozen guys that could be their team MVP at this point. So,
and we might see Matt Hossack win, and I think he actually probably is our defensive.
Why would you go there right now? Come on, we gotta get through a couple others. Let's go to offensive player. We'll get to the defender soon. Offensive player. It's a new league award, and it's no easier than the MVP, is it? I'm kind of like, if depending who my MVP pick is, maybe for this one I go Resetarits. I think he's been doing great things. I think Dane Smith, obviously. Dane, and you got to look at Dixon and Dobie as well. But I mean, Dane Smith has so many assists, and he's also scoring goals. Like, it's just ridiculous the way he's scoring. So I don't know who it is.
Unbelievable. He is the most supreme talent right now, and has been. I mean, we've literally never seen someone assist at the rate that he's been assisting, not just this year, but over the last handful of years. He is, I really wouldn't be surprised if by the end of his career he has the most assists in NLL history. So it's very exciting to see how he moves the ball around.
Yeah, my dark horse contender and offensive player of the year is Connor Fields, who's top 3 in the league in loose balls. And I think he's also in. I mean, if Rochester was doing better, I think he could be in the MVP conversation. I know there was some strong advocacy for him for MVP last year. I think in some ways he's got a better case this year because he has been so clearly and patently, transparently aware of being a team player this year, engaging everyone, engaging Lansbury and Smith, and not getting into that locked-in mindset where last year you could see he's thinking, I have to shoot. I have to get a shot right now. I have to make my shot. Instead, he is playing team ball, and I think he's been great, and it's really, really helped them in a lot of ways. It's not showing up for their wins and losses the way they'd like, although they're about where they were last year, right in the middle, right around 500. So,
but I would say, and looking at the stats, Ryan Lanchberry, and I know that Coach Mike Hazen has been incredibly impressed with how he's been doing. How he's stepped up. We saw some great assist numbers from him last season. He's continuing on that pace this year. That has definitely opened things up for the Rochester offense over the last season and a half now.
Let's move on to the transition player of the year. And to me, a key player in this race is Ryan Benesh. Why, you say?
Yeah.
Because I don't think Zach Currier is the transition player of the year if he's playing almost exclusively forward. So if Benesh is out for a while and Currier has to stay at forward, I don't know that he's in the running for this award, but I'll tell you, the numbers he's putting up, the cause turnovers and stuff, I might be convinced otherwise just because he is doing so well at everything. But I think if Currier goes back and plays transition for the rest of the season, and with Benesh back in the lineup, I think he's right in the conversation for this award. As of right now, my guy is Owen Grant.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you look at a guy who, if you want to look at guys who are exclusively in that transition position, although I guess, I was making the case earlier that Jake Boudreau should be in that conversation. I mean, I would actually pick Boudreau, although obviously, again, when we were talking about the rush, look at Mike Messenger, also transition player who played some defense, but
it's going to score a goal though, has he?
I don't think so. No.
So to me, that kind of lets you out of the transition.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. Let's see here. Oh, so Jake Boudreau has scored 6 goals, 12 assists, and actually, so only 4 behind Owen Grant. But what Owen Grant's doing, in a true transition position, has been phenomenal. And the fact, and I'll go back to it. I said it a few weeks ago on this program that he was called by Joe Spallina, the coach, that he sees so much of Brody Merrill in him, and you really see with his big body, his athleticism. He is a special talent. He's going to be one of those tough guys. But give me Jake Boudreau for this one, with Owen Grant as a 1A, 1B situation.
I've been breaking mine down into the player and then contenders. I've got Owen Grant as my transition player, and then my contenders, Jake Boudreau and Matt Gilray, who's been terrific for Rochester. And I don't know, a caveat, a tip of the hat, a nod to Ian McKay, who has been fantastic. He's had such a great season, but again, plays so much forward, so many of his points on the power play and things that I'm not really comfortable naming him transition player of the year, but that may be a me thing. I mean, he's been great all over the floor.
It's going to be really difficult for voters this year for this exact reason, with so many guys playing up front and having their listed position be transition. Is that how do you make that vote? How do you kind of decipher who is eligible for that award and who you want to give that award to? I think it's going to be a difficult decision for voters. So we'll see what happens.
Let's go on to an easy decision. I'm going to kind of skip one award, go to goalie, because I think it's an easy decision. I've been listing, my player and then my contenders. For this one, I've written down goalie of the year, Zach Higgins, with his .811 save percentage. Contenders, none. That's it. He is the guy. There are other good goalies. Aiden Walsh has been good. Frank Chiliano has actually been really good, even though he takes some slings and arrows. I think he's been good. Matt Vince, of course, is always in there. Zach Higgins is the guy. To me, there's no doubt we can just say Zach Higgins and move on.
Yeah, I do agree with you, and especially if we look at all the numbers of our goaltenders of the year in past years. I mean, Higgins is right up there with the best of the best. It's interesting though. I've heard from a couple people in the media that Dylan Ward is their goaltender of the year. And I understand that,
Yep.
he's obviously been great, making a ton of saves per game. He's facing a ton of shots. But yeah, I think that, if we look at the whole package and the numbers and then also compare, I would say that the Mammoth defense is better than the Ottawa Black Bears defense. No offense to the Ottawa Black Bears defense. And so I
Watching
think
that Firewolves game live, sorry to jump in there, but to watch him live and see the saves he was making, like holding the ball on the post, like the
It's
Firewolves
unbelievable.
offense it was not as terrible as the score said. Higgins was really that good. You got some young offensive players there, but I was way more impressed watching him live because we do sit right behind the goalie to see like he was just getting this one, just getting that one, but they don't ask how much of it you got. You need just enough to keep it out of the net. And yeah, no, I'm
Abrams.
very, very impressed with watching him live.
And that's the thing, is that with Zach, if there was actually a stat, like, and this would be subjective, of course, but of, who makes the most saves that they shouldn't be making.
Yes.
And Zach Higgins would be at the top of that
Yes.
list.
Exactly. Sorry to get excited and point at you, but absolutely. Let's move on to the defender, the one that we skipped. And now last week when you put it out, when you put out your list, didn't you put Graham Hossick? Was that a typo or
For
defender of the year?
I had been swayed by his massive performance the week before. As we always said, that things have, they're so fluid, and with the midseason picks, they're all just for fun there. But man, his performance and the way he's been stepping up, especially with Halifax winning now 5 of their last 6 games, and the defense and Warren Hill stepping up, they definitely deserve some credit. But yeah, Matt Hossick has been phenomenal for the Saskatchewan Rush. The cause turnover rate has slowed down a little bit for him since the beginning of the season, but he has been an elite defender. And it's often the guys, they not only the stats, but especially the true lax rats and people who watch the game, that they're like, okay, when I'm watching a defensive shift, I know who's going to lock down a guy. I know who's going to control things back there. And Matt Hossick is one of those guys.
Yeah, I think going into the season, when people thought, Hossick could win the defender of the year again, I think people were talking about him. But I know Saskatchewan was thrilled to get Matt back. They hated losing him in the expansion draft to Panther City. He was so good down there. He was the captain for PCLC. And I think he's been just lights out this year. So steady, so solid. I think his brother is in the conversation, especially after that killer game that he had. Shout out, by the way, in my musings this week, actually, to Michael Sowers, who in his debut, his first shift, I mentioned this, his first shift in the NLL, he goes down, drives underneath, goes to the net, and is absolutely hammered by Graham Hossick in the crease. Like, I think there are a fair number of guys who have been field first guys who would have played that shift and been like, you know what? I think my rib is out and I don't want to play box lacrosse anymore. And Sowers just didn't hesitate to go back underneath. He scored that gorgeous goal, going for a rebound last week. And I shout out to him. But Hossick is a beast back there. I still like Mitch Desnew a lot. I still think he's one of the best. Eli Gobrecht. A healthy Eli Gobrecht, I think, belongs in this conversation. And Ryan Dilks, somebody from Vancouver has to be in there, right?
100%. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. And, Aiden Walsh has given so many compliments to the wall in front of him that helps him out so much. And, again, I think it's a record thing. Like, Mitch Desnew is always great, but when you look at Toronto's record, if they miss the playoffs there, I just couldn't imagine anyone really giving him that many votes, even if he's been great. Yeah, go ahead.
I can say there, I actually, again, go to the musings that came out today, and I looked at the score, goals against, and how it correlates to playoff position. And 6 of the 8 teams in playoff position are among the top 8 teams in goals against. Yeah. And then you've got San Diego's just outside, but they're in that top 8, and they're tied for the 9th spot. And then Toronto is the only team who is solidly in the top 8 in goals against and is outside of the playoffs. And I think so. Their lack of scoring could be what hurts his chances to get defender of the year. That's one of those odd things. The other guy I did want to mention in Vancouver, who I think has been playing great. He's been a terrific defender for years. He was my defender of the tournament of the 2015 World Lacrosse Box Championships back in Syracuse, is Brett Mitzke. I think he is moving like he hasn't moved for a while. I mean, he's getting older, right? And they're tending, but you see guys like Kyle Rubish and some of these players who have been hanging on, but maybe not quite what they were. But I think Brett Mitzke's been terrific.
Yeah, no, I mean he's been phenomenal. I mean, all of those veterans have been fantastic for them, and it's been great. But yeah, I think it is going to be interesting. I do think ultimately it will if I had to have my 1A 1B again, I would be going with Graham and Matt Hosick.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. But I did want to throw it out there because we were just kind of talking about it. If to any of the viewers or anyone listening, how many guys have won an individual award that were on a team with a losing record by the end of the season? I don't know what the answer to that is, but I'd be curious to find out.
That's a good one. And has anybody ever won the MVP for like a last place team? The Andre Dawson effect.
I'm willing to bet 0, though. I mean,
Yeah,
most of the time as you're going through, that would be I mean, you would have to be so far above average to stand out like that. No, that's a great question, because if somebody has done it, I would like to watch those highlights.
Well, yeah, for example, let's say that Zach Currier ends up, matching what he did in the first half and the second half, but somehow, let's just say hypothetically, San Diego misses the playoffs, but he's got 40 points, 40 assists, and 200 plus loose balls. How could you not give him an award at some position? I mean, this would be out of this world stats in a season like we've never seen before.
Yeah, 40 points, 40 cross turnovers.
Yeah,
and 200 balls. Yeah, you said 40 assists, 40 points.
Oh,
yeah, 100%. It's interesting. And right now they're not in a playoff position, right? Sitting in ninth. So
they're sitting in ninth. Tiebreaker
to Vancouver.
Warrior. Yeah.
Yeah. Rookie of the year, which is not a lock, is it? Is it? No, it's not.
No. But here's a situation where does, let's say Dyson even has a hot stretch here, the Albany Fireballs record and his impact on that offense, it would be very tough for voters to give him that award just because of the team standing.
Yeah, but none of my leading contenders for this. I've got Brendan O'Neill right now as my rookie of the year, but I've got Dyson Williams in there and Will Johansson, who's been great for Albany, and Adam Poitras for Vegas. None of my leading contenders are on playoff teams right now.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I would say that Adam Poitras would be my number 2 behind Brennan. For me, Brennan, it's not only the plays that he's made, it's the impact that he's made on that offense, the way he's changed things, the way that he's improving and making defenses figure out how they can stop him, and his fearlessness and his effort, I think, has been unreal. And of course, the media attention he's gotten with his electric plays helps to sway some of those voters on the fence to say, oh yeah, let me just back a step. Who did that one thing that I was like, wow. And Brendan O'Neill is that guy.
And Brendan O'Neill did those 3 things that make you say, wow. But, I think the other thing is awards can be about narratives, and the narrative of him coming in, not having played a lot of box lacrosse, and everyone wondering how quickly does he adjust, and it didn't take long. And I think early on he was scoring goals on field plays, right? But he's a box player. He's been playing well, and he's committed. And I think he probably gets the nod. But I want to throw in one name that I'm not sure it'll pop up in May rookie of the year conversations. I wouldn't say he's a contender for my vote for rookie of the year or even for my top few, but one guy who I really dig how he's been playing is Jack Follows in Calgary. I think he's been on the weekend, he was, I thought, his best game that I've seen him play. He is playing so solid, so smart as a young defender. I thought some people maybe had him a little overrated coming into the draft last year. I think I had him a little bit lower. I had him like in the teens, mid-teens, and some people had him like verging on the top 10, but he could have been picked anywhere. I think he'd be a pretty good selection for Calgary.
Yeah, and then you got to talk about another Halifax Thunderbirds player, and Mike Robinson, who has been a solid piece of that offense and has had some really big games for them and really stood out. So it's
Mhm.
solid, reliable rookie class that I
It
think
is.
has delivered.
Oh,
I think, even maybe, I mean, you've got two rookie classes that have come in essentially. So you've got this big pool of players, but, for a lot of guys, who I think there was some question as to,
okay, Adam, I can't hold it any longer. I'm sorry. When I get all excited, I was like, sit back, let him talk, let him talk. I want to throw in one other name, and then you can finish up, okay?
yeah,
Again, not in the conversation for the actual Rookie of the Year, but
yeah.
Curtis Romanchuk in Halifax. I've been a fan for years. I think he's been right on the verge of really getting his shot in the league. He's been in tons of camps on practice squads and things. He just hasn't had the chance to play. I think he's been great for them, and I think he's a guy that's belonged in the league, and I'm really happy to see him in
So
there.
do we say that the Thunderbirds then, outside of, let's say, the Saskatchewan Rush, who have so many great rookies, we didn't even
Mhm.
mention Levi Anderson,
Yeah.
that the Halifax Thunderbirds, in terms of their rookie class this year, have the best future for a team, because or Vancouver is in there as well. They've got some great players. Uh, Welcome back, everyone, to the final segment of this week's edition of Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. Adam Levy, Stephen Stamp, Greg Beecher behind the scenes there. We are at this portion where we, as Stamper has said, it's the humiliate the host section. So we are going to be throwing out our picks. And, I wish, look at us, Stamper, 24 and 23 for you, 23 and 24 for me. We are in a heated battle.
We
But
are.
Stamper, let us start with you in that Friday Halifax versus Ottawa Black Bears game.
One side note, I hear you say verse, and I know it's all the kids love it these days. Is it really that much of a savings to just not say verses?
I mean, one extra syllable is a lot. There's
I
so much
suppose.
going on in today's world.
You're such
Adding
a
those
millennial.
extra
Are you a millennial? You are, right?
yeah,
I don't love it, but I'm a words guy. I
yeah,
like verses. But anyway, so hard. I think both teams played really well last week. I
mhm,
so I haven't been picking Halifax much, and I feel silly about it, but I feel like they've won a lot of games. They're maybe
yeah.
due for a downswing. I'm going to take Ottawa at home, but boy, again, I don't feel great about it. But then again, that's why I'm like 500 on the year, right?
Yeah, no, it's been very interesting to see my picks change and things and whether it's doing Preston's picks or other picks that are out there and how things change from here for me. But yeah, it's gonna be a good game, and we were just hyping up Zach Higgins and how good he is. But Halifax is on a heater. That if they win this game, that they haven't been in a few years. They haven't won 6 out of 7 games in quite a few years now, and so um, I'm going to go with the hotter team here and go Halifax. I was just praising their defense. I
Yeah,
think it's a toss up. I think it's
yeah.
it's going to be so interesting. You've got a strong offense and potential strong defenses. It's who knows what's going to happen with this one.
Yeah, and I mean, if Halifax wins, I think it's largely because of the way Warren Hill is playing lately as well.
Yep.
So we've been looking at goalies. I think the next one's pretty easy. Dylan Ward, like you said, maybe he's a strong contender for the second guy in the goalie of the year standings.
Hmm.
I'm going to go with the Mammoth.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, me too. Although I do want to shout out Tyrell Hammer Jackson getting signed by the Las Vegas Desert Dogs yesterday. I was actually able to snatch him only a couple hours after the signing for the Lacrosse Matrix podcast. So go check that out. He's excited to bring his energy to the team. Also, I learned from him a little bit about how tugboats work because to me,
He's a log driver.
I know, but, I mean, when you look at a tugboat and you're
Yeah.
like, "How in the world is that carrying that massive tanker?" I mean, I still don't get it, and he tried his best to explain it, but,
Well, when
that's
I was in grad school, I got to go and I was doing a folklore course. I was doing some folklore classes, and I for some of my field work, I got to go onto a tugboat that was bringing a Laker tanker in from the ocean into the Port of Piscataway, which is a really difficult estuarine system. And I got to ride with them. I got the call. I was like waiting for one. They called at like 11 o'clock one night and said, "We're going out to get a tanker. Do you want to come?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I went out and rode this thing, and it's fascinating to see what tugboats do. But also watching him go to his Instagram, Tyrell Hamer Jackson, and look at him log driving. It's like the log driver's waltz. It's amazing as he runs around on these logs floating in the river.
He actually teased on the show that he and Red Bull are kind of teaming up potentially for something where there's going to be log running competitions and stuff like that. So that's super cool that, he's already been in the media locally in the Vancouver area for that kind of work. And, it's right up Red Bull's alley to have that kind of event. I feel like I've seen those things before. So, if that comes to fruition, that is pretty phenomenal. But I have strayed us from our real objective here. So when it comes down to Saskatchewan between Vancouver, Tyrell Hammer Jackson's former team, that's a look at that segue there. Who are you going with, Stamper? Are you going with Saskatchewan, the hot team, or Vancouver?
No, you got to pick this one first.
Okay, that's fair. I'm going to go with Saskatchewan on this one. Again, I think that Vancouver, they're playing well, and they are on a bit of a skid right now. They had that really good start, but Saskatchewan, if they could win 2 games, especially on the second night of a back-to-back, the way that they did, and everything that we've said about them, and also the fact that I shouldn't have picked against them last week, I have to redeem myself and pick them this week.
I'm going to stick with my teams that are winning a lot tend to wind up losing at some point, and teams that have lost some games don't. I'm going to go with Vancouver in this one. I still think Saskatchewan is one of the best teams in the league, but I'm going to take the Warriors. So, Greg, you got to slide me over there. Come on. There we go. Yeah, I think this will be a really fun game.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Warriors in this one at home.
Very excited. And also it's great for lacrosse fans. You can watch that Halifax and Ottawa game and then transition right into the Saskatchewan-Vancouver game. So that is a lovely back-to-back on Friday night.
And we get Saturday rolling. I have been saying all season the Rock are going to start winning games. They're going to win. I feel like that one last week may have been a bit deflating. I'm going to take Georgia in this one.
Oh, you even tricked Greg there for a second.
Yeah, I know. That's not that hard, but still.
You know what? I was thinking about this and I'm like, it's got to be Georgia, but this is really a win where, look, if Toronto loses, like their odds of making the playoffs, their schedule isn't the toughest in that final stretch, but you got to pretty much be perfect to even have a chance at 10-8 if they would fall to 3-8 in this one. So, just for the sake of keeping Toronto and their hopes alive, I got to go with the Rock here.
My other factor is the teams have been doing so well after their bye weeks that I'm going to go with the Swarm. We're going down or across? Let's go left to right. So Rochester at Calgary. You're up.
I'm going to go with Calgary on this one. They've been playing really well of late, but that offense has been looking good. Even in a loss to Saskatchewan, 13 goals. We talked about, or you had mentioned the potential of maybe Dane Doby having an off game here and there. Well, right now it hasn't happened yet. And look, Rochester's defense and, their inability to stop allowing so many shots hasn't resolved itself yet. So I think that Calgary, they're looking good. They're feeling good. And I think they win this game.
Yeah, they've been doing well. I mean, I think the natural way to go is Calgary. Rochester's such an enigma.
Yeah.
They'll play really well, then they'll play really badly. They played quite badly on the weekend in most facets of the game, which makes me think, oh, how do you pick them? But I don't know. I just have a hunch. I'm going Nighthawks.
Okay.
Because last time I went with a hunch with the Nighthawks, and then I got convinced to go off of them, and they wound up winning big in a game that everyone was like, "Why are you even picking Rochester?" So I'm going to take the Nighthawks. But I'll tell you, if they let me down on this one, that's it.
This is shaping up to be a very decisive week in our rankings, Stamper.
It is. It makes me nervous. I guess pick first in Albany, Philadelphia. Oh, much like I said, Toronto is due to win some games. Albany's due to win some games. I think they will at some point, but I don't know. Philly's good. They've got that they've got things. Albany.
Good.
I might
I
rewind.
love how you did that, and I respect it a lot that you just went with the gut. And again, I think it's another toss up where you just which team are you going to get? From these guys. I'm going to go.
Philly's giving up the second most
I'm
goals
going to
per
go.
game in the league,
Yeah, they are.
but they score a lot too.
They score a lot. I'm going to go Philly. I'm also hoping to make it up to this game on Saturday.
Ooh,
So,
nice.
yeah, that'll be a fun one. It's this for me. Just I feel important. It's important for me to just say, not that I'm dissing the Albany Firewolves, my pick of Philadelphia. It's more that when it comes down to who's won more games and who has delivered more, Philly has shown that this year. We all know what Albany's capable of. That roster is filled with so much talent. You've got some guys coming back from injury now, Colton Watkinson, and more are set to return there. So I think that things, hopefully this final stretch for Albany is better than their first half, but I think that Philly has just shown that they can win games this year better. So
Getting John Wagner back would be massive
he's
for Albany. Speaking of massive, what a game, what a rematch with Buffalo and San Diego. Great game last week. I think we'll have another really good game. Will it be like the 7-6 game we saw from them a couple of years ago? I don't know. You have to pick first, though, because I picked last one.
I mean, I'm a little afraid to pick San Diego. I've definitely ruffled the feathers of some Buffalo people with some of the comments that I've made
Really?
last week. Yeah, but wouldn't
Buffalo
it be?
fans are sensitive, though.
They
Yeah.
that is they're very prideful of their team, and understandably so. Wouldn't it be a story of San Diego on back-to-back weeks could beat the Buffalo Bandits, especially that they hadn't beaten Buffalo in the 4 matchups that they had played previously to last week. Uh, I'm gonna go Buffalo just because I can't, but also I can't see them winning or losing back-to-back games against the same team. It's sorry, that's my dog in the background. But yeah, I'm gonna go Buffalo with this one.
Yeah, it's tough because I lean towards Buffalo because of they're just so good. It's hard to imagine them losing twice in a row. But boy, picking against San Diego right now, like it feels like they could be down by 4 goals with 6 minutes to play, and they'd figure out a way to come and do it. But I don't know that that's a way to live and keep winning games. I'm going to go with Buffalo just because I think they bounce back, and teams tend to split a lot, especially when they're really good teams. But boy, San Diego's a story, and they could really make it a dynamite story if they won Toronto, Buffalo in the 3 weeks when we all thought, man, they're in danger of going 3-8. Now they could be above 500.
And also, we do have to again mention that they played San Diego on the second night of a back-to-back. Plus, there was inclement weather that was around, huge snowstorms and all that was impacting travel, life, all those kinds of things. So that played a factor. And even Coach Patrick Merrill had mentioned that the Buffalo team that they'll be facing in San Diego is going to be a lot different than the one that they faced in Buffalo last week. So I think that, rested and healthy and on a normal schedule, I think that helps Buffalo as well.
This is a big week for the National Lacrosse League. It's a big week for the ITWOBL predictions segment because we are so close and we have picked differently on 5 of the 7 games. So yeah, the NLL stuff's nice, but it's big. This is the real deal, the ITWOBL prediction standings. So
plus everybody
Greg.
was over 500 last week, though. I mean, you guys had pretty good weeks. You what was it, 5-6-2 and 7 and something like that, 6-3, 7-2. I don't know. You guys were dominating last week. I'll have to.
Sounds like we picked different numbers of games. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. So let me go to the results. 5-3 and 6-2. Yes, it was 5-3 and 6-2. So I was close.
Well, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm excited. You guys, you can see as the season's going further along, though, you guys are really getting it. And Stamper, I know you have to run, so I'm going to let you close us out.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks so much for being with us. I do have to head off, and it's great having everyone together. Adam Levy, always a pleasure. We are wearing our hoodies because it's about 1 million below zero. It's to the point where it doesn't really matter whether it's Fahrenheit or Celsius. It's just super cold. It's
Yeah.
minus 21 here. Who cares which it is?
It's
For
even
Greg
minus 14 in the city here, Stan.
Yikes. And again, who cares? Fahrenheit, Celsius, that's just cold. For Adam Levy, for Greg Beecher, I'm Steven Stamp. Thanks for being with us here on ITWOBL, inside of the world of box lacrosse. It's been a pleasure for this Week 13 coming up edition, and we'll see you next time.